ICQ Podcast episode 485, World Cup Special Event Station. Well, hello fellow amateur radio enthusiasts and welcome to episode 485 of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast, supported this episode by our monthly and annual subscription donors. In this episode, we join Martin M1MRB, Dan Kilo Bravo 6 November Uniform, Caryn KD2 Golf Uniform Tango, Edmund Mike 0 Mike November Golf, and Ed DD5 Lima Papa to discuss the latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin M6BRY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is the World Cup 2026 Special Event Station. Now, as mentioned already above there, your ICQ podcast comes to you advert-free and, as I say, supported by our wonderful subscribers to our monthly and subscription donors. You can show your value for what you receive from the ICQ podcast by visiting our special webpage, ICQpodcast.com/donate, where what we ask you to do is to show the value you receive from the show by turning it into a financial figure and sending it our way. And everything you send our way goes towards our running costs and keeping your ICQ podcast show for you advert-free. So please do consider supporting your show. We'd also like to remind you of our next digital talk group net. Our next talk group net will be taking place on Saturday the 4th of July and will be from 0800 UTC to 1200 UTC. So please come along and join us then. Right, now we're going to join Martin, Dan, Caryn, Edmund and Ed to discuss and generate thoughts about the latest amateur radio news, including declining ham numbers in Japan and 2 more ham brands survive. As always, hope you enjoy.
Well, hi guys, and welcome to the ICQ Podcast, episode 485, and tonight's news roundtable for that episode. Tonight, I'm joined by Mr. Dan Romanchik KB6NU. Hi, Dan.
Hello there, Martin.
We missed you last time, Dan, but I know you were travelling, so and you'll tell us more about it later. But
I've got a great report.
Yeah, great to have you back. Your side of the pond, we have Caryn Eve Murray KD2GUT. Hi, Caryn.
Hi, Martin. It's great to be back and to be together again with the gang.
Yeah, having a full house tonight is good, isn't it? My part of the world, about 50 miles south of me, Mr. Edmund Spicer, M1MRB. Hi, Edmund.
Hello, Martin. Hello, everybody.
Oh, yeah, no props. And we are international because we're going over to Germany now to Mr. Ed Durrant, DD5LP. Hi, Ed.
Yeah, good evening, Martin. Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, good to have you. So I think we're going to have a fun episode tonight, as often we do. So, first one is the number of amateur radio operators in Japan continues to decline. Now, I thought it was well over 100,000 when I first came in well over 1 million rather when I first came into the hobby 26 years ago, but it doesn't seem so good now. I'm going to pass it to Dan first. Dan, what do you think?
Well, I mean, this is really kind of concerning, and I understand why they had such a high number before, because apparently it was very easy to get a license and all that. But even so, you know, this and it's kind of disturbing. Now, they have had a population decline in Japan, but I think the number of hams is declining even faster than that. So, you know, all those things considered, this is a little bit concerning. And you know, one thing we discussed before the show was that maybe with the domestic market declining so much, maybe the manufacturers won't be so quick to invest in ham radio. You know, we have ICOM, Yaesu, and Kenwood, and especially Kenwood. Kenwood's been sort of silent on the ham radio market for quite some time now. So, you know, all those things are certainly worth watching, I think.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you, because at least ICOM and Yaesu have air radios and maritime radios, so the amateur is not their only market, but I've no idea whether Kenwood does or doesn't. But as you say, we no longer in the UK have a Kenwood presence. It's all Kenwood stuff is done through Martin Lynch and Sons as a dealer, so you know, the Kenwood seems to be a bit quiet.
And Kenwood did have a booth at Dayton, but it really was very disappointing. They really weren't showing anything, and they certainly weren't showing anything new except some kind of mobile rig under glass. So it's some, like I say, it's something worth keeping an eye on.
It certainly is, Dan. Certainly is. Caryn, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, gosh, I don't have enough information about it. I would want to know, first of all, the demographics. Are we looking at the population aging out and dying? Are we looking at a lack of younger people coming into the hobby? There's a lot more involved than just looking at a trend and drawing a conclusion. So I would want to know exactly what's going on. For instance, I remember not too long ago hearing that, obviously in the U.S. the greatest growth would be in the tech level licenses. But again, sometimes a person becomes a technician because it's also part of their job, either as an emergency responder, emergency communicator, and we got to take into account the fact that not everybody who gets a tech license is going to be an active ham. So again, there are a lot of factors in play before we can draw any conclusions. Yes, the numbers are the numbers, and the numbers are going down, but I think there are more dimensions to it than just that. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah. Well, as I say, it does seem a massive decline over the last 20 plus years. Ed, what's your thoughts on this? You've probably seen bigger numbers than I have, who've been licensed longer than me.
Yeah, I've been licensed just over 50 years, and I'm pretty sure it was 1.5 million hams in Japan when I first got licensed. But really, I mean, we're saying this about Japan, and yes, because there was such a big number in Japan, gone down to now a lot lower number, we notice it. But there's very few nations, as far as I know, who are increasing their amateur radio population relative to the overall population number. My guess would be the only countries that might be increasing the number of licenses still is the US and possibly China, because China was very restricted previously on who could get a license, and now it's become easier for them to do it. So proportionally, I think the amateur population in China is probably increasing, and we believe in the US as well. But everywhere else, as far as that, when I've seen figures, which isn't that often, seems to be reducing. In Germany, we might go up by 10 and down by 10 or something, but we're certainly not, as time goes by, overall it's dropping off. And yeah, I'm afraid that's pretty inevitable. In the UK, we're going to see in the next few years a major drop-off in the number of licenses, simply because Ofcom are now cleaning up the fact that people have 3 licenses instead of just 1. So the actual numbers from that are going to suddenly drop, even though the actual physical number of people don't drop. As Dan has said, whether the local market is going to drive, whether the large manufacturers, the big 3 as we used to call them, are perhaps going to get less interested in amateur radio. I don't know. I mean, my feeling on Kenwood, or JVC Kenwood, the proper name, the full name, shall I say, is that they haven't really been doing much of, revised handy talkie here, maybe a mobile rig here or there. But certainly the HF radios, I believe was it the 880 was the last one, and that's got to be over 10 years ago, the last new HF radio. That being said, Yaesu and ICOM have brought out new HF and VHF UHF radios recently, so perhaps we don't have anything to worry about, but time will tell. Unfortunately, that's all we can say. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, as you say, time will tell. Well, I believe that there were quite a lot of amateurs in Japan that were only allowed to use a maximum of 10 watts, which meant that some of the rigs that were sold in Japan looked exactly the same as the rigs we see in Europe, but their power was limited. So, interesting, some of the models. Edmund, what's your thoughts on this one?
Ed read my mind when he mentioned about Ofcom revoking foundation and intermediate licenses in the reasonably near future for people who've upgraded, and as a result, the UK population reducing. I did wonder if something like that might have happened in Japan, because, yes, obviously, if the population at large has shrunk, then inevitably the amateur population will shrink as well. But the numbers involved seem so large that I'm having trouble believing that the explanation is down to that and that alone. So, like Caryn, I would like some more information, but I will finish by repeating something that I think I've said many times before on the podcast, which is, whilst I'm not suggesting for one moment that the overall size of the amateur population doesn't matter, because obviously it does, nevertheless, given the choice, I would sooner have 10 radio amateurs who were active and did things and went on the air periodically than 100 or 1,000 radio amateurs who passed their exam, made one QSO, and then you never heard from them or saw them anywhere ever again. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah. Well, as you say, it's a matter of activity on the bands and doing this. And we've got quite a lot of bands, so it's sometimes very difficult sometimes to find where to find people. So interesting. We thought we'd bring this one to you, and let's keep an eye on it. Moving to our next news story, Find the Right Rig, a new comparison tool for ARRL members. Now, I'm going to go to Ed. You're not an ARRL member, but you've looked at this database, haven't you, Ed?
Yeah, I've looked at it as a non-ARRL member, and I've mentioned on the podcast previously, the reason I'm not a member is because I never got a reminder to renew my membership, and I only realised it 6 months afterwards, so I obviously wasn't using ARRL services. Yeah, so I've looked at this, and a lot of it, you'll get just the first screen with a list of radios. And what they're trying to do there is quite nice, but it's a lot of the thing, I think, is it's really a promotional site to try and get people to join the ARRL. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, because whenever you want to select a filter function or you want to look at certain technical data, you don't get anything. It pops up as a non-ARRL member. It pops up, join the ARRL if you want to see any more. The details it's got on the receiver side, Sherwood produces more data and more detailed data, and Sherwood also explains what the data means, whereas you're expected to understand the abbreviations on the ARRL page. But this is their first attempt at it, so well done to them for doing that. There's a lot of areas it could be improved in, and should it really be a service only for ARRL members, or should it be a service for all amateurs? Opinions will vary on that one, I think. But yeah, good luck to them. If you want to get to the actual comparison database, as they call it, it's just compare.arrl.org, and have a look yourself. Won't take long, and see what you think. I've already got a couple of points that I'd like to see improvement of. They split the transceivers by home station, mobile, or handy talkie, and they've got some QRP radios in there that are portable under the home station list. So there's the minor things. As a starting point, it's okay. Will I use it? Probably not, because I get a lot more information from the Sherwood site, which is open to everybody. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, well, I thought it was an interesting one to let people know it was there, and it's more helpful to the ARRL members. Dan, I believe you are an ARRL member. Have you had a look at this?
I have, and I'm pretty much in agreement with what Ed has to say about it, as it's being a good first cut at it. As he's mentioned, there's things I would improve on, if you will. And like, for example, one of them might be actually defining all the different specifications, as to what they really mean. For example, there's a specification here labeled BDR 2 kilohertz dB. Well, I'm sorry, but I have no idea what that means. And then there's some numbers here. And so it'd be nice to have an explanation of what each of these specifications are. The other thing I was thinking of is that'd be nice is to actually have links to the QST reviews for each of these rigs. I mean, that's where they got the numbers from, right? That, they review the radios in QST, and that's where they've gotten all these numbers from. It'd be nice to have a link to that, so you could then, like I chose to compare the ICOM IC 7760, 7610, and 7300. It'd be nice to be able to click on the heading and go right to the QST review for that radio. So that's another thing they might think about doing. And I'll say this, if there's any ICQ podcast listener that wants a comparison, I'm an ARRL member. I'd be happy to run it for you and send it to you. So you can get in touch with me and let me know what radios you want compared, and I'll do that for you.
Well, that's a nice offer, Dan. That's a nice offer. And hopefully you won't get too swamped. Edmund, what's your thoughts on this one? I mean, if you're like me, you couldn't see everything because you're not an ARRL member.
Indeed, I'm not and never have been an ARRL member, and that's simply because I was born in England and have lived here all my life. So I joined the National Society here, which is the RSGB. If by chance of birth I'd happened to be born in the US, then doubtless I would have joined the ARRL. So my experience is the same as yours, Martin. Regarding the question of whether it should be available to all amateurs or ARRL members only, well, it's their data, it's their website, it's their rules, basically. So if the ARRL see fit, for whatever reason, to restrict it to members, then that is their prerogative and their right. I don't think it's something I would look at, really, even if I were a member, partly because I'm not in the market for buying any more amateur radio equipment. I already own far more equipment than I regularly use anyway. So the last thing I need to do is go out and buy even more. But leaving that aside, based on Dan's description, it sounds like there are sort of some very scientific, nerdy measurements to do with selectivity, sensitivity, SINAD, all that stuff. Whereas if I was thinking about what radio to buy next, I think I would be more interested in things like, for example, if it were, a reasonably modern 2-meter FM radio, I would be more interested in if it had CTCSS fitted, for example, rather than in the minutiae of very scientific measurements, as Dan described. And they would be wasted on me anyway, because I've only got a dipole and I live in quite a noisy environment. So I imagine that if I spent a week using the best ever radio, according to the ARRL, and then 7 days later I switched it for the worst ever radio, according to the ARRL, it probably wouldn't make an awful lot of difference in terms of the number of people I worked, who I worked, and where they were. So I can't benefit from this, Martin, but in my individual circumstances, I don't think that's going to be a major issue.
Yeah, well, fine on that, and fair comment. And a while ago when I used to work, or a good few years, well over 10 years ago, I worked for Martin Lynch and Sons, and it's no great secret. I did 10 months with Martin, and when I was showing people radios in the showroom, I'd find out what their budget was, and I'd show them probably one of each of the top 3 manufacturers, and they'd say to me, which one would you like? And I said, it comes down to, they're all fairly similar in spec. It comes down to which one do you think is the prettiest one? Because you got to sit in front of it. If you pick a radio that's pig ugly, you ain't going to use it. And there was a a radio that around that time was horribly ugly and horribly difficult to use. And the performance was supposedly a lot better. But in fairness, you're going to sit in front of it. If you think it's ugly, you ain't going to buy it. So there is not a lot of difference of the big radios. Certainly even in the Sherwood report, there's not a major difference between the top 10 radios. But there you go. Right, move to our next news story. And I'm going to get Dan to go first on this one. It says, button, who got the button? Over to you, Dan. This is the political one.
Well, so what I've done, and I did some of this at Dayton, actually, I've, as many of our listeners know, and especially if they've read my blog at all, I'm not particularly enamored with our current ARRL leadership. And one of the things I've done is to create a button that has the international no symbol and the name Minster on it. Of course, Minster being the CEO of the ARRL. And, you know, I don't know how far this is going to go or whatever, but I created these buttons. I passed them out at Dayton. I seem to have gotten a great response to them and think I'm going to continue to do this. And I have some available. People can contact me and get one if they want. Go to my website and see how to do that. And like I say, it's just an expression of my discontent with the way the ARRL is going.
Well, I think it's an interesting way to promote how it went. And you said there were members at Dayton that took more than one button off you and wanted to pass it on to their friends. So hopefully you will get the response you wanted.
Well, I think that discontent is out there. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Edmund, have you seen Dan's badge or his button badge, and what do you think?
Well, as I've previously mentioned, I'm not an ARRL member, so I am disinterested, but I'm not uninterested, because obviously I would want for all national bodies around the world to do well. So I don't have any skin in the game, as I think the modern phrase is, but I am slightly mindful of the fact that David Minster is not here on the podcast to defend himself. So I will ask one question, and this is a genuine I would like to know question. It's not a question asked for the purposes of causing mischief. If it is genuinely the case that David Minster is not doing a particularly good job objectively as opposed to subjectively, and if the ARRL knows this, or could reasonably be expected to know this, but nevertheless they keep him in office and don't do anything about it, then is it a David Minster personally problem, or is it an ARRL problem? And if it is an ARRL problem, even if somebody else were to step into the CEO leadership role, would it ultimately make any difference? Because I'm sure there are loads of candidates who, prior to taking the job on, could say, oh, I would do wonderful things and I would change everything for the better, and I would do all these wonderful things. And that's all well and good saying it before you get elected and take over and actually do the job. But doing the job could be a completely different thing altogether. So if it's an ARRL problem, would replacing him with somebody better, quote unquote, and I'm not sure what the universal definition of better is, would somebody better ultimately make a difference?
Well, I was wondering if Dan was going to jump in then, but...
Well, I don't know that we want to get involved in such a long discussion, but you're absolutely right. Who knows, right? They've had three three CEOs in the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. So obviously the first two didn't really change the course of history. So maybe it is more than one person can do. And of course you're right too, that it ultimately the ARRL board is responsible for that. So, if I was Minster, I'd keep my job until the board threw me out, which is, it's because it's up to the board. So the problem is deeper than just one guy, but it's all related, right? It's all related.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. Moving to our next news story. Sale keeps 2 more ham brands alive. And we've done, Caryn's done a fair amount of checking on this one. It looked rumours initially, but I think Caryn has been able to find at least a sensible thing for this. And yeah, Mirage and Meritron items have now been bought, haven't they, Caryn?
Yeah, it appears so, Martin. Today is, as we record this, June 10th, and I have an email that I sent 2 days ago to Dave Carpenter, the executive of ITU Corporation in Indiana, which previously purchased Cushcraft and High Gain from MFJ Enterprises. So given that rumors were swirling and given that Amateur Radio Newsline doesn't go with rumors, doesn't even go with hearsay, I needed something solid from the horse's mouth, as it were. I did not, as of this date, hear back from Dave Carpenter. I wasn't sure how we would handle the story, but I went to his LinkedIn profile, and there you have it. Underneath are the logos of all of the brands that his company is associated with. And Cushcraft and High Gain, of course, are there, along with Mirage and Ameritron. So absent a statement from Mr. Carpenter, we do have enough to solidly say that there's a deal. There's no press release, nothing else really from the company or from Mr. Carpenter. But let's just say it's a happy story. These are American-made products, and the big cry here is, can we get American-made products? Again, I love my KX2, and that was made here, and I was so happy to know I wouldn't have to wait for a boat or an airplane to bring it, and that you really cannot separate me from that radio now. So having something here made locally, creating jobs as well, is a great thing. For people who enjoy the amplifiers, this is also good news. It means there will continue to be a supply. And that's another good thing. What I also think is really quite lovely, sort of on a personal note here, say what you will about the price point and the reputation of MFJ Enterprises. We have all had equipment in our shacks from MFJ, all kinds of equipment. And for many of us, it's helped make ham radio good and accessible. And I'm grateful to Martin Jew for having created such a wonderful company and provided all this good equipment. So it's great to know that the legacy continues, and I'm just delighted, and I was really happy to be able to get this story pinned down somewhat and have our listeners hear the good news. So that's where we're at, Martin. Back to you.
Yeah. Well, as you said, it's good news. And I say, keeping product alive is always good. Ed, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I go back to the time when Martin Jew, K5FLU, actually announced that unfortunately he had to close down the MFJ business. And at that time, there were several documents that said he was looking to sell the complete portfolio as a going operation, so to speak. And there's been, some time passed, and then he's obviously decided, first of all, he managed to sell Cushcraft and High Gain antennas to ITU Corporation. the fact that now Mirage and Ameritron amplifiers are going to the same group is, 4 major parts of the MFJ empire, if you like, going to the same place is a nice feeling. And I wonder if there's any more parts of MFJ that may go the same way. I will say, though, that when I first saw this story, I had the same worry that it might have been something that somebody has made up somewhere because they thought it was a logical step. It does seem, though, that they're at the stage where it's going to happen, but it's not officially announced. That's how I would read the situation from what Caryn has said and what I've read elsewhere. And yeah, good that this other company, which have just moved into a lot larger buildings, so they have capacity to take these kinds of things in, are continuing the history of US-built amateur radio equipment. And the obvious questions we have from outside of the US is, I wonder what the pricing is going to be from Europe to buy some of this equipment when it gets back into production with ITU. Not that I'm in the market for any of it, I must add, but I know there's a lot of respect for US-built amateur radio equipment in the whole world. So, as Caryn said, who's not got an MFJ item of some sort on the desk? I'm sitting in front of one of the tuners, and I've got a dummy load from them, and the whole world has some MFJ equipment. So I hope that all the parts of the old MFJ company do manage to survive. It would be nice if more of them were with ITU because it's just tidier. But even if it goes to other people as well, it would be a shame to see the empire that Martin built just go away. He did a great job and he's a great guy. Back to you, other Martin.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky to meet Martin Dew in 2019. I had a nice chat with him. A really nice guy. But he's well past retiring age. I believe he's in his 80s. So he should be stepping down and enjoying his latter years rather than working hard. So it's nice to see his product is being kept alive. Edmund, what's your thoughts on this one?
I don't think there's anything substantial I can add to what's already been said, other than, yes, I am living proof about amateurs owning MFJ equipment. I own 2 manual antenna matching units, a little small portable one that's QRP up to about 30 watts, and then a much bigger one, which I think can handle up to 1.5 kilowatts, but I'm essentially a QRP person, so I would never get anywhere near 1.5 kilowatts. And I hadn't previously appreciated that there was a link between MFJ and, am I going to mispronounce it, Ameritron linear amplifiers? But I don't do amplifiers in life in general anyway, so there's no reason why I would have known that there was a connection. QRP for the win. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, no problems. Well, I'm a QRP operator most of the time myself as well, although I do have quite a few bits of MFJ gear around. Dan, last words on this one?
Well, so these 2, actually 4 lines, were all lines that MFJ acquired, right? They aren't really MFJ units specifically. So I think we can only hope that somebody will step up and acquire the antenna tuner lines and the antenna lines that he made and the antenna analyzers. He had a line of antenna analyzers. So let's just hope for that. Maybe somebody will do that and keep everything going.
Well, that would be a nice thing to do, wouldn't it? But we'll just have to see. But yeah, at least things are happening. Okay, move to our next news story. HAMSCI asks Canada to reconsider shortwave shutdown. I'm going to go straight to Mr. Durrant, Ed, on this one. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, this was announced a couple of weeks ago that Canada decided to close down their time standard shortwave transmitter. And the fact that HAMSCI have come back and said, well, hang on, this has got scientific value. It's been used when they did their investigation of the solar eclipses, for example, that the signals from these stations were used for that. I know that over here in Europe, a lot of radio amateurs listen to the CHU, which is the call sign of these stations, or the station on different frequencies, to know what the propagation is like. So it's a very valuable resource, and it's a real shame that they're closing it down. And whether HAMSCI as an organisation will carry more weight than, for example, the ARRL or Radio Amateurs of Canada. With any shortwave station, there's a lot of costs involved in keeping the thing running. And there's also the other side often that somebody's coming along saying, close your station down, knock everything down. I can build houses or I can build a factory there and give you money for the land. So the government or the department running this has two ways to go. One is they've still got the expenses and they've got to try and fund it somehow. Or the other way is they close it down, they lose those expenses, and they sell the land off and they get more money in their coffers for some other project. So it's a hard one, but let's hope that the Canadian government reconsider this. It will be a loss otherwise. It's it's like losing the time standards. Forgotten what they're called, but Dan will tell me anyway. The well-known time standards in the US. This is the Canadian equivalent of it. So it's a shame if it does go, but I think the decision's already been taken. So good luck to HAMSCI in changing that decision, but I haven't got a really lot of hope that they'll succeed. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, I understood it. Well, at least HAMSCI are out there doing all sorts of things, and we've spoken to HAMSCI when we were in the States. We've interviewed them. They're a great organisation, so I have no problems with them. Caryn, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I don't think it's going to do any good because I think the fix is in. It's going to close. But I was very happy to see HAMSCI go to bat for this. I think you were referring, Ed, to WWV in Colorado. This is the equivalent, the time reporting station. My gosh, CHU has been around 100 years, and it just seems like shortwave is little by little just getting eroded. Personal thought is I think it's foolish to rely on things like the internet or even the telephone. I think radio is meant to be used, but I'm grateful to HAMSCI for putting its well-respected voice into this somewhat limited debate and weighing in on it. I say limited debate because the decision is a done deal. So we'll see. There are special event stations already planned honoring the shutdowns of, they're not shortwave. They're not shortwave in the UK. What's being shut are older technologies for broadcast, and I guess it just seems that shortwave is considered one of those. So it's unfortunate. Time goes forward. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from, and I know everybody wants to go new technology and all this and the other, but sometimes there's nothing wrong with old technology. All right, but the people are going to use it. That's the problem. So, Edmund, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, CHU transmits on three frequencies, one of them just below the 80 metre band, one just above the 40 metre band, and one just above the 20 metre band. And the one just above the 20 metre band I've received quite a few times here in the south of England. But all of the transmitters run at relatively low power. Two of them are at 3 kilowatts, and the strongest one, the one just above 40 metres, is at 5 kilowatts. Well, the WWV transmitters are, I think, typically at least double that, 10 kilowatts, and WWVB on 60 kilohertz, I think, is at 50 kilowatts down in the long wave spectrum. So I suppose, slightly playing devil's advocate here, the powers that be in Canada could make a reasonably compelling case that Canada is largely covered by WWV anyway, and given the locations of the CHU transmitters, there are large swathes of Western Canada that can't receive CHU at all. So if those same locations are also out of range of WWV, then the powers that be could make the argument, well, if we turn off CHU, then people living in those places aren't going to be any worse off than they are already. But as I say, I'm saying that slightly tongue-in-cheek. I agree with Caryn. Once again, we know the cost of everything and the value of nothing, and older technology, by virtue of it being around a long time, has a proven track record. And yes, it's all well and good relying on the internet and mobile phones and modern technology, which works absolutely brilliantly until it doesn't. And you then probably start wishing that you had some kind of backup, I should think. I do feel sorry for radio listeners in Canada. Canada really seems to be going for it in terms of shutting things down, because it was earlier in 2026, I think, that they discontinued their equivalent of the NOAA weather channels on VHF up around 162 megahertz. So first there was that, and now there was this. So I think it's a bad decision. I mean, in terms of the electricity it costs to run those transmitters and the upkeep of the transmitter masts, well, if you view that through the lens of the total Canadian economy, then it wouldn't even be a rounding error. It would be less than that. So, yes, I'm sure they can make lots of money by flogging off the ground, the land that the masts stand on. But as somebody said to me at work the other day, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, an interesting last statement there. Interesting last statement. Dan, last words on this one?
Yeah, so like the other presenters have said, I think the decision's already been made. And while it's a valiant effort by HAMSCI, I don't think that's going to get any results. But I will relate a, I hope it's kind of an amusing story about CHU. Is, when I was a kid, I built and got my general class license, I built an HW101. And the HW101, it was all analog, right? It had an analog dial. And I would use CHU to actually calibrate the dial on 40 meters. And the HW101, if you look at the panel of the HW101, there's a button right by the tuning knob that says 0 set. And so when you press that, it's all mechanical. It would hold the analog dial in position, but if you turn the tuning knob, you'd actually change the tuning capacitor. So I would set the dial to 7335, which is the frequency that CHU was on at the time. And then I'd press the 0 set button, and I'd zero beat CHU Canada. And then I knew I was on 7335. So, anybody out there with an HW101 still, that's not going to be possible anymore once CHU goes off the air. Although I think they've changed frequency since then anyway. But anyway, that's my story about CHU. It's sad, but just another thing that's gone.
Yeah, it certainly is, Dan. And I suppose as we all spend longer in the hobby, we all have those interesting stories, and I enjoyed that one, Dan. So that was a good one. Right, moving to our last news story. Caryn, you put this one in. Amateur radio has the power of awareness, and this is a special event station. So Edmund will also be listening with intent here, Caryn. But over to you.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for special event stations. Some of them are silly, but fun. Some of them are commemorative, some of them are history lessons, and some of them are calls to action. And it's in this last category that the latest one, calling for awareness of the world's population of giraffes. Yes, a tall order. One can joke about that, I suppose, a very tall order. But our planet's need for conserving and protecting it's critical. I've been a part of a couple of special event stations over the years. There's the Autism Awareness Week station in the spring, which is very critical to spreading the word and educating folks. There's another special event, I forget when it's held, but it's to raise awareness through a group called PanCan, which, again, I try to work those stations when they get on the air. They support a group that assists families who have a member diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. There are so many ways we as amateur radio operators have the power to move people to action, to support, to awareness, and to education. So whether it's in the realm of animal welfare, whether it's in the realm of health and medicine, whatever it might be, we do have the power. And I think these special event stations are important. The giraffe event will be held in Pennsylvania. There will be a station on the air, and they will be calling for people to understand what the plight is of basically diminishing population. World Giraffe Day, which is June 21st, coincidentally the longest day of the year. The call sign, I'm looking for that right now. Well, they're going to be on 20 and 40 meters. That's primarily where you can find them. They'll be on 17 meters if band conditions favoring sideband FT8. Gosh, I hope they're also going to do CW. I don't see that here. I'm looking for the call sign, and I will get that for you in a moment. They are going to be at the zoo, the Lehigh Valley Zoo, and they do have 2 resident giraffes there. Again, when you think about it, yes, there are a lot of issues going on in the world, but every little bit in the world is interconnected, and I think we need to be aware of the fact that we're part of a bigger picture, and this is really what it's about, is taking a stand, supporting amateur radio operators. W3G is the call sign to listen for, and you can imagine what the G stands for. It is giraffe. So be listening, and hopefully they'll get enough contacts to make it happen. June 21st, World Giraffe Day. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, sounds like a good one, Caryn. Sounds like a good one. Dan, are you going to try and work this special event station?
I'm going to stick my neck out here, pun intended, and I fully support the World Giraffe Day special event. I will be listening, and I will work them, even if they're not on CW.
Well, that's a good one, Dan, because, not everybody can do CW, me included, so good one. And it'll be interesting. Okay. Ed, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, not really a lot to add, actually. Just hope they get lots of contacts and publicise the plight of the giraffes. And good luck to them. And, yeah, maybe I'll work them. Who knows?
Well, if you're out early one morning on a SOTA summit, mind you, if you're out early, it's going to be middle of the night for the people in the States, isn't it? So possibly not going to be easy. But there you go. Edmund, I know you like special event stations. You going to try and work this one?
I will. Whether I'll succeed or not, though, I have my doubts. It'll probably be on 20 metres if I do. 17 metres, if it's open, is a really good band to be on, though, because apart from anything else, if somebody is listening to that band with a slightly older radio that doesn't have a waterfall display built into it, 17 metres is narrow enough that you can tune up and down the band and catch pretty much any signal that appears before it disappears. Whereas if you're on 20 metres, or worse still, 10 metres, the band is so wide that a special event station could rock up on a frequency, call CQ a couple of times, not get any answers and disappear. And that could all happen in the gap between when you tuned across the frequency going in one direction up the band and then coming back to the frequency, coming back in the opposite direction, if you see what I mean. So yeah, I'll be listening out for it. And Whiskey 3 Golf, that's almost a palindrome in CW, isn't it? It's not quite, but it is close. So yeah, that would be a fun one to work on CW. So I hope they use that band as well. And I like the fact that they chose the 21st of June, the longest day of the year, because giraffes are the tallest animal, I think, aren't they? But only Northern Hemisphere giraffes for that to work on that day. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah. Well, I thought you'd like that one being a special event station. Well, that concludes our news stories for today. Let's find out what the guys have been up to since the last time we had a chat. So we always go ladies first in this group. Caryn, what you been up to?
Well, we're segueing directly into special event land. Tomorrow being Thursday, the day after our recording session, the special event for the World Soccer or World Football Tournament will be in full swing right through July, early to mid-July. 16 host cities throughout North America. I am the coordinator for the New York team, so we're ready. We're ready. We go on the air when our stadium here in the New York area has its game. So Whiskey 2 Charlie will be our station. And we have operators doing all bands and all modes. So we've been very busy. We've been all assisting the core group of organizers on that. This is monumental. Even if you're not a sports fan, it's just fun. Hey, we can have fun, right? Can't we have fun? Of course we can. This particular special event will kind of flow seamlessly into another special event where I'm not an organizer. I'm just an activator, and a very happy activator. The 13 colonies, being in New York, I'm one of the original. Well, I'm not, obviously. I don't date back that far. I may be old, but I'm not that old. 13 colonies, and I'm going to be one of the activators on the New York colony team. So that'll be good. We have that. POTA, haven't done too much POTA. Just been pretty much preoccupied with the two special events. So hopefully if the weather holds into the summer, there will be POTA. But we've got Field Day coming up, ARRL Field Day, which will be happening toward the end of the month. And I'll be pretty much preoccupied with getting on the air for that. So lots to do, and hopefully all of it going smoothly and the ionosphere cooperating. That would be a nice thing. That's it for me, Martin. Back to you.
Well, it sounds like you're going to have a lot of fun in the next few weeks, and you have been busy, and I know you do a lot of other things as well. So, yeah, and weather hasn't been totally great for you over there, has it? So, understandable why some of the POTA hasn't happened. But good to hear what you've been up to, Caryn. Right, Dan, what you been up to? Well, I know partly what you've been up to, but give us an update.
All right. So, I missed last month's recording because I was on my way to Dayton. And I just had a wonderful time at Dayton as usual. I left here Wednesday morning and I came back Sunday evening. So I had almost a better part of a week's ham radio adventure, if you will. I left early Wednesday morning so that I could do a couple of POTA activations on the way down. I activated 2 spots on the way down. And man, unlike past years, it was really chilly and windy this year. I only managed like 12 contacts at the first stop and 14 at the next one. It was just too cold to sit out there in the gazebo. It actually wouldn't have been bad if it wasn't windy, but it was so windy it was just too chilly. But the weather turned nice the next day. I went to the 4 Days in May seminars and I activated a spot on Thursday afternoon. I actually cut out of 4 Days in May early on Thursday and activated the Dayton Aviation Heritage National Park. And that was a blast. I met a couple of guys there who were also looking to activate, and we had a great time. In all the time at Dayton, I didn't buy a single thing. There was one thing that one guy had. It was like an old Gonset code practice oscillator, but he wanted like $30 for it, and I didn't think it was worth $30. So I said, well, I'll come back and see if he still got it, the next day. Well, the next day I go there and I couldn't find him, so I kind of had to pass on that. But then on Thursday or Sunday, I gave a talk. I gave a talk on teaching on one day tech classes, and Sunday at Dayton is really the slow day. Most people leave on Saturday, and I thought, oh no, they gave me a Sunday slot. Maybe nobody's going to show up. But I had pretty good attendance. There were at least 30 people there, and the talk went off pretty well. So overall, I just had a great time at Dayton. And my other activities lately have been POTA. Unlike Caryn, I've been doing a lot of POTA, and one reason for that is that they added a quote unquote park here in Michigan called the Iron Bell Trail, and this is a hiking trail that goes from the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, which is where they mine iron ore. That's where the iron comes from, all the way down to the Detroit area where there's the Belle Isle State Park. And it's like hundreds and hundreds of miles, and the trail actually happens to go like within a mile of my house. And the rule is you have to be within 100 feet of the trail, or in this case the trail, to count as a valid activation. And I found a spot that's 35 feet from the trail, and I've been hitting it very regularly. So now already I have 334 contacts from the Bell Iron Trail, and the weather's been great here, and it just lends itself to POTA activations. So that's what I've been up to. Still haven't quite finished my tech study guide, but that's going to come out real soon now. So if anybody's looking for that, they can be looking at my website, KB6NU.com, when I release that. But that's it. Back to you.
Well, you sound like you've been really busy, Dan, and I'm glad you enjoyed Dayton. We did miss you on the last record you would have been on, but, it was a good one that you enjoyed yourself at Dayton. That's the important thing. Right. Ed, over there in Germany, what have you been up to?
Sometimes I wonder if something went wrong with the recording, whether you could actually take my text from a previous recording and put it in, and whether anybody would notice, because I always seem to come back with the same sort of things, and it's a repeat this time around as well, messing around with antennas. In this case, I'm actually quite impressed with an antenna that on the internet many are calling the red slug antenna because of the bright red feed point it has. This is a cheap as chips Chinese antenna. It's a simple ground stake mounted quarter wave vertical that uses the cheap 5.6 meter telescopic whips. And I've now actually just got a 40 meter loading coil for it as well, and that's also working very well. All up, it costs about €35. Make your own radial wires and things. But the important point is it performs well, and it's actually quite stable. I was rather surprised at how good it was. So That's one of the antennas. The other story of woe is actually, if you like, a bit of a word of warning to others who may do the same as I did. If you have a linked dipole, this is often put up in inverted V format with one mast in the middle, and then links in the wire at each side of the dipole, so you set the band. If you have one of those, whether you built it yourself or whether you bought it, and you decide you want to add another band to it, you're actually better off taking the whole thing apart and starting again from scratch. You'd think adding an extra link into an existing wire, as long as you get the distance right on it and everything else, should be easy. It isn't, because as soon as you put that in, it seems to put every other section off. So I've spent the best part of a week now, every day, testing, changing, recalculating, cutting again, adding pieces in, taking pieces out, until I could get all the bands resonant again. I'm on my 5th adjustment now, and I don't even know now whether it's right or not. I'll find out tomorrow. But just a word of warning to anybody who's got a link dipole and you want to add a link in, it's going to take you less effort to stop, take the whole thing apart and start from scratch and work outwards from the feed point, adding a band at a time and adjusting the length. Well, we learn by experience. Apart from the antenna work, I've actually managed some Porter activations, and these are actually Porter activations for a change, not Plotter, so not from inside the car. One of them was interesting. It was a 5-fur. What a 5-fur is where 5 Porter entities coincide. In this case, 1 park and 4 trails. And I was quite impressed. I think this is, because for the hunters, one contact with me gives them 5 entities in one go. I thought that was great until I saw somebody else had spotted a few days later at an 8-fur. So that was 8-fur was actually, I think, 2 parks that overlapped and 6 trails. 5 trails and 1 cycling track, all of which are Porter entities. It's about a 3-hour drive away from here. So maybe at some time in the future, I'll activate that point. It doesn't seem to be very hard to get to at all. But yeah, so I've been doing some Porter and enjoying that. Weather hasn't been so nice at times, but we manage. Some of you will know that since the last time I was on the show, my first ever book, Contesting Basics, has been published. And I'm also still busy with editing 2 other large ham radio books. Hopefully that'll be finished before my trip this year out to 5B4 land in August. So I can actually relax for a change instead of thinking I've got to get this finished and that finished and everything else. Yeah, on the 6th of June, 6th of this month, I actually got on to the ICQ Digital Talk group. But before I steal Martin's thunder on that, I'll let him tell you about what's happened there. What else have I got? Okay, I'm getting ready to be at Ham Radio Friedrichshafen. So if any listeners are there, I'll be there on the Friday the 26th and Saturday the 27th. I hope I bump into some of you. Just keep an eye open for the bright orange polo shirt. And look forward to meeting people there. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, you sounds like you've been busy, Ed, and having a bit of fun. And all being all, yeah, you have had some fun. Right, let's find out what Edmund's been up to. Edmund, what have you been up to since the last time you was on the podcast?
Well, I also took part in the latest ICQ Digital Talk Group net for some of it, but then had to disappear midway through to go and have fun shopping. So that was unfortunate timing. Other than that, not really done very much amateur radio wise. I bought a second-hand Zactec Whisper transmitter, stuck up a temporary antenna for 10 meters, and got all around Europe on 200 milliwatts. The sporadic E-season seems to have been very slow to get going this year, and also, there have been quite a few days when I haven't heard very much, but today, Wednesday, the 10th of June, when we're recording, for the first time today, I heard some really strong FT8 signals on 50 megahertz, 6 meters. I've heard some weak ones, but today they were very much in evidence, and there were broadcast stations coming in from Russia and Ukraine on the OIRT band, so between 65.8 and 74 megahertz. So maybe finally, belatedly, sporadic E is getting going in the Northern Hemisphere. So get your antennas up for 10 meters and 6 meters. Coming up, the 3rd and 4th weekends in June are the International Museums weekends. The first weekend is more popular than the second, and the first day, Saturday, the 20th of June, I think it is the most popular one of all. So I'll be at Amberley Museum that day using the call sign that we have there permanently, which is Golf Bravo 2 Charlie Papa Mike GB2 CPM. If you try to work museum stations and you're calling them and they're not coming back to you, it may be that they have a very high noise level locally, as many museums do for obvious reasons. So if that happens, don't think that you're being deliberately ignored or cold-shouldered. It could just be that they've got a colossal amount of noise locally. And in the week in between, there's a special event station on the air, Golf Bravo 1500 Mike, GB 1500 meters, which is marking just over 90 years of long-wave broadcasting in the UK and marking and lamenting the closure of Radio 4 on long-wave on 198 kilohertz, which is actually 1515 meters, but up until the frequency reorganisations in 1988, it was on 200 kilohertz, which was 1500 meters on the nose. And there's about over 20 different people who volunteered to put this call sign on the air, most of them in England, but some of them in Scotland, and one in Wales, I think, and one in Northern Ireland as well. And there's a rota system going on. So throughout the week, I will try to put that call sign on the air from home as much as possible, mainly on HF, but if we have good VHF conditions, tropospheric ducting or sporadic E, I might have a go on 6 meters or 2 meters. And there's a lot more information about all of that on the RSGB website at rsgb.org. And if you search for long wave shutdown, it'll take you to the pages where all the information is. I think that's everything, Martin. So back to you.
Right. Well, say you've got a lot going on, and I seem to be as busy as anything and very little to show for it most of the time. Yes, last Saturday we did have the digital talk group run for 4 hours. It was a bit of fun. We had stations in from Australia, the States, Germany, and the UK. Really enjoyed it. It was an enjoyable 4 hours. People were dripping in and out. Obviously, if you want to stay for 4 hours, great, you can. If you duck in and duck out, then nobody gets upset. Caryn, you mentioned fun, and radio has to be fun. And you're dead right, because I'm going to tell you a bit of fun I've been having over the last couple of weeks. Okay, middle of the afternoon in the UK, there's not a lot on VHF and UHF ham. However, with a digital radio or a radio that's got a digital hotspot, I've had some great contacts. Now, I've been playing with All-Star Link, and I haven't made too much of a big noise of it, but I've been playing with All-Star Link, and I joined a repeater group in Hinsdale, which is part of, I think it's a suburb of Chicago, and they run what is known as the Grumpy Net. And if you join the Grumpy Net 3 days in a row, you get an official Grumpy number and you get a Grumpy certificate. Well, I can't do 3 days in a row. But the other option is you join 5 days in a 30-day period. Well, I joined 5 days in about a 14-day period. So I'm now officially a grumpy for the Grumpy Net over there in Chicago way. And my grumpy number is 315. So great bit of fun, Okay, so for those of you who don't live in the Chicago area, if you're an All-Star link, you need to connect to 419310. That's 419310 on All-Star link. And I also believe you can get into it remotely if you've got a Brandmeister repeater or a Brandmeister hotspot. You can try 322-0694. So that's 322-0694. I've only watched it happening, data going through that group while I was on. So a little bit of fun. And well, those who know me weren't surprised that I'm now an official grumpy. Moving to the next part, I spent some time talking to Scott McDonald over there actually he lives in just round the corner from this repeater. I haven't spoken to Scott in a long time, and we had a great catch-up the other day. Scott's call sign KA9P, great guy, and look after yourself and best wishes for your good lady, Scott. This week for me, I'm joining the Repair Cafe on Saturday, and I'll probably be just fixing things like vacuum cleaners and clearing rubbish out of the pipes and things like that. And people think you're absolutely a superstar when you do that. It always surprises me how people are worried to take anything apart. And last but not least, today we have a German supermarket in the UK, Lidl, that's selling power banks and jumpstart. It's a power bank / jumpstart for your car. But the power bank says, you can charge your mobile phone and you can do this and that. But it also has a 12-volt, 8-amp socket on it. Now, this power brick isn't that big, but I'm thinking for things like SOTA and POTA, it might be a nice little device to take out. Haven't tried mine yet because I only got it this morning, but certainly sounds an interesting device. And the whole thing, bear in mind you can jumpstart your car as well with it, was about £25. So £25, but it's quite a big power block, but not heavy. So sounds interesting to me. So that's what I've been up to, apart from being on the talk group and being mobile whenever possible. So I'd like to say, I think we've all had a great time. All that's left for me to do is thank the guys for turning up, and we'll move to the next part of the podcast. I'd like to thank Dan Romanchik KB6NU.
Well, thanks for having me, Martin.
Yeah, great as always, Dan. I'd like to thank Caryn Eve Murray KD2GUT.
Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, thanks, Caryn, and we'll keep in touch. Also like to thank Mr. Edmund Spicer, M1MRB.
Thanks for having me on, Martin.
No problems at all, Edmund. And last but not least, over there in Germany, Mr. Ed Durrant, DD5LP. Thanks for joining us, Ed.
Always a pleasure, Martin. Thank you very much.
Cheers. All right, all we have to do now is say 73s and we'll move to the next part of the podcast. 73, guys.
73.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.ICQPodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.ICQPodcast.com.
And now it's time to have a look at the news in brief with me, Colin M6BLY. We start with news here of a new satellite tracking program that's been released. It's been developed by Peter Goodhall, Mike 9 Sierra Quebec Lima. It's hosted on GitHub and it's called OscarWatch, and it provides an integrated environment for tracking AMSAT and other amateur radio satellites, predicting passes, managing Doppler corrected frequencies, and optionally automating rotor and radio controls, all from a single map-centered interface. Important thing is it's a multi-platform desktop application, so it should work across everything that you have from there. So as I say, lots of features in this as well for you. As I say, visual tracking, pass predictions, frequency management, hardware integration, optional serial CAT control, supported radios including the ICOM 910, 9100, 9700, 705, the ACE 847, 817, 818 and 991, and the Kenwood TS2000, to mention some of those from there. So certainly an interesting application to get involved with. We'll put the links just for you on ICQPodcast.com, and hopefully you can have a play with this lovely new piece of software. Now, the FCC has relaxed a deadline for Amazon. They've basically been told they've got to get some satellite internet into orbit, but they've only got until July the 30th to launch 1,600 satellites. The biggest problem here is that Amazon is saying it's not a case they don't have the satellites, it's that they're just struggling to get them actually into orbit. And as I say, that's where these extensions are coming into place from there. So it looks like Amazon are under a bit of pressure to meet this deadline. But say the FCC have given a little bit of relaxation, but maybe not enough for them to get those satellites into orbit. So again, something to keep an eye on from there. News from Germany. Applications now been accepted for what they call the Mint Star Award. Mint is their version of STEM, the equivalent of STEM, as I say, in Germany. It's for the Baden-Württemberg, Hesse and Rhineland regions, and they're looking for teachers who have done effective Mint promotion over the last year. The Mint Star Award could win you as much as €4,500 worth of materials for the winning school and teacher. So this is the largest STEM initiative in Germany. So say certainly something to be interesting from there. We'll pop the link for you on this on ICQ Podcast webpage if this is something you might be able to take part in, and certainly get a reward for your work in that STEM enthusiasm area. Right, we're now going to head over to our features episode where we have a chat with the organisers of the World Cup 2026 Special Event Station. As always, hope you enjoy.
And now for this episode's feature from the ICQ Podcast.
Well, we're joined for the feature for this episode by Antonis, AA6 Papa, and you're part of the group which has the special event station for the FIFA World Cup, which has just started, and covering the host cities of United States, Canada and Mexico. So welcome to the ICQ Podcast, and as I say, what an amazing idea for a special event station. You'll need to tell us how you came about coming up with the idea and getting involved in the group.
Thanks, Colin. Thanks for having me in the show. It was a tiny little idea that Ron, AA5, 8K, came up in the very early days of the year. How can we get together and maybe find a lead operator from each one of the 16 cities that are taking place in this FIFA World Cup, and trying to kind of put a special station event for ham radio, and that idea kind of started very, very slow, and over the first few months of the year, we kind of start building a website and trying to kind of find more and more operators and engage our clubs and within each one of these cities, and suddenly it became a huge event with a lot of preparation and work under the hood, under the bonnet, if you wish, and to get us to where we are today. It's been exciting. It's been energizing, and we are on as of yesterday.
Well, exactly. So we had our opening match, as I say, on Thursday, and as I say, certainly a great session. And obviously, you would have had operators operating around that match in Mexico City between Mexico and South Africa.
We did. It was a little bit of, a worry moment because all the systems we put in place, our website, our scheduler for our operators, the log upload functionality that every operator is using at the end of their shift was tested, but it was, it's never like the first live moment. Everything went really, really well, and the first game was a great one. And going forward, every city will have their turns. When there's a game in every city, that city will be on. There are certain cities that will be on through the whole event for the whole 45, 46 days, duration between June 11th and July 19th. So far, so good.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, so some cities are going to be on just on match days, and then some will be on full time. Is that based upon the number of volunteers you have for each city, or is that just due to operating conditions, or what would be the difference between the two types of operations?
Yeah, it's a bit of everything. So definitely the number of volunteers that we were able to find across each one of the cities. Then some of the geographies, like for instance in San Francisco, we don't have as many HF operators as, for instance, in Kansas or in Dallas and so on. So it was more of a struggle to find the right people there. And of course, operating conditions, but we hope that we will overpass this.
Yeah. And I suppose the question is, the fact is, are you still looking for operators in those cities?
Well, I'm really glad you asked for this, Colin. Absolutely. The event is taking place between now and July 19th. And the more operators we can sign and fill those operating slots that we have on our scheduler, on our website, the better. Yeah. Which means that even if you can volunteer for an hour, even if it's the last day of the event, please sign up. And we are a little bit loose in terms of the proximity to the stadium. So we usually will take operators as far as 100 miles from the geography where the games are played. So we're not really restricted by grids by all means and so on. We want people who want to have fun, who want to help a little bit. They use their own equipment. They can do it from their own home shack, or they can go out to a park and operate from there and just have fun.
Oh, fantastic. So I suppose, again, if you're a visiting fan and you're obviously going to the match sort of thing, and you've got a little poster kit with you, that's certainly something that you could then contact yourselves and get that special event station on the air maybe a few hours before you're heading towards the actual match yourself, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, for the San Francisco city, which I am the lead organizer over there, I had a great ham that is visiting to watch a few games from Australia, and he asked me whether he could be part of the crew to operate for a few hours out of San Francisco. And he was like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I tell you, so you just need to validate, make sure you've got an active call sign, is it?
That's right.
To be available and go for that call. And if someone wants to get in touch, they just go to your website. There's a nice red volunteer button on your website. It says that's really all they do, is they just contact you via that form on your website, and they can catch a slot, yeah?
Absolutely. So the volunteer button links to a page that allows you to select which city you want to operate at, wherever you're closer, I guess. Mm-hmm. And from there, we, the city lead operators or coordinators, get an email, and we immediately create what we call an operator key for you to access the secret locked part of the website for you to schedule your own air time.
Fantastic. So we'll give the first shout out to the website, because it's very important people know about it. So it's Whiskey Charlie 2026 Sierra Echo Sierra.org, and say where you can head to the city there. And most important then, so that's the first part. And then I suppose the second part is the on-air function, where you can see which stadiums stroke host cities are on the air, and what bands and modes are available. And they're all listed there for you to, as I say, select your operating day or city and find out exactly who's online, aren't they?
Yeah, we try to gamify it a little bit. So we actually build certificates as well, and you can have a participant certificate all the way to a gold certificate. And we soon realized that in order for our chasers to know who is on the air, rather than just relying on the Summit and other mediums like this, we needed to help. So we implemented the functionality we call on the air on our website. And there you can sort by city, or you can sort by date, and you can get, in essence, who is on the air and what time, what band, and what mode. We do all digital, CW and SSB, of course. And you can actually download that report, so you can take it with you. So if you're out on the field and you want to know without cell phone signal, and you want to know who's on the air, you can have that print out for you.
Yeah, exactly. From there, and as I say, I mean, I'm sitting there thinking there are obviously going to be people from all around the world operating, obviously at different time zones. Their time, I was in Greece only last week, and it's quite mad when you start seeing the time of day their games are transmitted, sort of thing. And I'm thinking it'd be great for you to get up bit billy-eyed in the morning, pop a game on in the background, and also fire up the rig at the same time, and see if you can hit a contact back as far as the States, and see who's online, as you say. I think it's a fantastic idea. And then on that, are there things like QSL cards as well as certificates and things like that people can share and get involved with?
Yeah, absolutely. So every city took pride into designing their own unique QSL card. I will tell you, there's no secret that AI helped a lot, each one of us here. So from San Francisco to Dallas to Vancouver to Mexico City, whoever, we have a QSL card that you guys can collect. And each one of us has a QRZ page for the call sign that represents the city. So for San Francisco, Whiskey 6 Sierra. And in that QRZ page, we will detail how you can get a QSL card. Yeah. One thing that's important is that we're not collecting QSL cards, so don't worry about sending us yours. Usually what we have decided is that we will probably charge a minimal fee, probably $1.25 or $50 to cover the expense of, printing out the cards and sending out envelopes and paying for stamps to people who wish to have them.
Yeah, I'm with you. So, I mean, the other thing as well, looking at the teams that are qualified, we're missing a few of, should we say, some of the big nations that didn't make it this year. So this will be obviously a great way of getting those friends in from those nations and getting them involved in the tournament. I'm sure. I'm thinking, for instance, Italy and Uruguay, two teams that always seem to qualify quite a lot, are missing this time around. So it'd be great to hear those countries dialing in, if you like, and taking part in your special event station, I would suggest.
Absolutely. And I think this is exactly why we wanted to put this event up and why we became so passionate about it. I think, football generally unites the world, and ham radio also unites the world. And there will be so many hams around the world that they will try to get every single QSL card, every single certificate that exists. And we already get inquiries about people who are trying to kind of get hold of our cities. So yeah, for Greece, which is where I'm coming from, and unfortunately we are not in the World Cup this year, is important. It's important for those radio operators to kind of make contact.
Exactly. But of course, I hear that Greece had major basketball success this year. So you can't have everything. You can't win a World Cup and a basketball tournament. You see, I've learned stuff this last few weeks. You know what I mean? So,
you're absolutely right. He was ecstatic to win the European Basketball Cup. But the World Cup is just a special thing.
True. Now, what about people who would say, well, it's only for football fans? I'm sure, obviously, the fact that anybody that likes a certificate or that chasing of call sign logs, etc., are more than welcome to take part, and it's more than just football, yes?
Absolutely. So this is a ham radio event. So our URL, Whiskey 6 2026 SCS. The SCS is Special Event Station. And it is for ham radio operators to kind of make contact with us. To be honest, football is not that important or big in the United States, for instance, but we have seen a lot of demand already in yesterday when we had our first game from radio operators throughout the U.S. Trying to make contact with us. So this is a ham radio event. This is not necessarily a football or a soccer, as we call it, on the other side of the pond event. So please make contact with us. Plenty of really cool QSL cards to collect, and certificate.
Yeah. Now, I was asked to do this interview with you, Antonis, because I'm supposed to be the ICQ podcast resident football fan, and I've just realised Uruguay actually qualified. So if anyone sends me an email and tells me that, yes, they are. They're in Group H with Spain, Saudi Arabia, and Cape Verde. So I apologise to anyone from Uruguay for saying he didn't qualify. So
I didn't want to say anything, Colin.
Oh, bless you. So anyone who knows what football team I support will question whether or not I know anything about football, but that's a different story. That's fantastic. So as you say, you're up and running. We've done the opening day. We already, as we record this interview with yourself. Statistic wise, how much of a success was it on opening day? Say with the first couple of matches.
So far, so good. I don't have any data to share in terms of how many contacts we had yet, but I should be able to have some, and we will publicize as well on our website. But the hiccups of the first day were minor, very, very minor, and everybody had fun making contact with our operators, and operators seem to be happy. Today, we have another few cities operating. I think W4C, W5C, Dallas, and where are we? K0C, call signs, WM3 Penn, Victor, Charlie 3, Foxtrot will be on the air. One thing I should emphasize is that we are not just operating during the 90 minutes of a specific game. Every city has its own schedule. A lot of the cities will operate 24 hours on the day of the game. Other cities will operate 24 hours from day one, the 11th of June, to the last game, which is July 19th. And other cities like San Francisco will operate 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific, or whatever that is in UTC, every day that we have a game, plus the final day of the event. So to get all that information, the on-the-air function on the website or the city plan link is what you should be looking at.
And certainly so, because I mean, I'm looking here for the 14th today. We release, our episode with your, this chat in it. And we've got Dallas, we've got Houston, we've got, Houston's got a lot going on. Kansas, Miami, Monterey, sorry, not Montreal. That's a different place, isn't it?
Philadelphia and Toronto.
And Toronto. So, I mean, a lot going on there, as you say. Lots of opportunities to get some beautiful QSL cards to work towards the certificates. And as you say, a lot of activity on that day. So, as I say, no matter what day you pick, I say there's a lot going on, as you say, a lot of stations to work. So, as you say, go to the next day and we've got Seattle joins us and Los Angeles in there as well, so, and Atlanta. So, yeah, I mean, to be honest, you could be doing a lovely tour.
Plenty of opportunity. Let me share this with you. We have to date, and we want more, 282 operators across the 16 cities. Yeah. We have 4,063 time slots on our schedule that will be on the air between June 11th and July 19th, which is insane. And this is going to grow. These numbers are going to grow. So you have plenty of opportunity to capture every city enough to get your QSL cards and, of course, your certificates.
Yeah, and as I say, guys, they are some quite striking QSL cards. I must admit, they are absolutely beautiful QSL cards. So yeah, well worth collecting as many as you can there. So as I say, website WC 2026 SES. What I'm saying, guys, is if you're in the area, you wish to volunteer, click on that volunteer button, let the guys know when you're available and certainly take part and volunteer. They say it's not rigid, as we mentioned. You don't have to be in a set location, you just have to be within a certain distance, and you can use your own kit like a POTA type of operation if you're traveling, for games, etc. So that's a great way of getting involved. The on the air button, find out what's available, or as I say, to the city plans if you're chasing an individual city. And then fingers crossed, as I say, at the end of the event, you'll be firing off a ton of certificates to the ham radio community to celebrate hopefully a very successful tournament that England will be winning.
Yeah, and let me add a comment on the certificate side of things. You can download your own certificate by going to our website and click on the certificates link. You can pull your call sign and look up to see what you have earned so far. In terms of earning certificates, we have 5 certificates to offer. One is the participant certificate. So if you make contact with just one city to 3 cities, you can get the participant certificate. If you, we have the quarterfinal list certificate. That's 4 to 7 cities, so minimum 4. We have the bronze, 8 cities. We have the silver, 14 or more, and we have the gold, which is 16 cities. And the last thing I'll say is that we also have a special event bonus station.
I was about to ask, yeah.
Yeah, so on the last day of the event, and we will have operators from all cities transmitting on the bonus station. And if you do make contact with the bonus station, then, and let's say you have sort of one city to make the gold certificate, that one contact will get you there.
Perfect. It's a bonus city as well to keep an eye out for on the 19th of July, wouldn't it? So that'd be that one there. Perfect.
Right.
Okay, well, that's amazing. As I say, I really hope everyone takes the opportunity to get involved over the next 40 days of the competition. As I say, there's I know there's a lot of football going on for those that's interested in it, but those who isn't, there's a massive load of event stations that you can work on, all multiple of different bands and frequencies, etc. So we really hope you guys do take this wonderful opportunity. Thank you, Antonis, for letting us know about this amazing event, and we wish you absolute success on it. And I hope, there's a huge number of contacts and friendships made across the way.
Thanks again, Colin. Thanks for the invitation. I hope to hear you guys all on the air. And if you are near the city, please do volunteer. We're expecting tens of thousands of contacts, to be honest, over the next 40 days. And we couldn't be more excited. Thanks again for the coverage.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, guys. And check out that website, WC2026ses.org. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.
The ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, serving the amateur ham radio community fortnightly since 2008.
Well, everybody, I really hope you enjoyed our feature there, chatting to Antonios about the World Cup special event station that will be going on probably for the next few weeks as the FIFA World Cup grips North America, and certainly a great opportunity there to win some awards, some fantastic QSL cards, etc. So I really hope you enjoy taking part in that special event station. Now, as always, we'd like to thank our donors, our monthly subscription donors that help us pay our way and keeping us advert free for you. And again, if you've got value out of today's show, we'd ask you to consider supporting your ICQ podcast by visiting ICQpodcast.com/donate, where turn the value you receive from today's show into a financial amount, send it our way, and keeps your show produced for you advert free every fortnight for you. So please do consider us from there. As mentioned at the top of the show as well, next digital talk group net is the 6th of June. Go to ICQpodcast.com for all the information on how to get involved out there. We really would love to have you there. And it's an opportunity not only to speak to potentially your favourite presenter, but also to talk to other listeners as well of the ICQ podcast. So please do join us on that digital talk group net we're arranging there. But I say that net's available 24/7, so I say do check it out. And I say have a great rag chew from there. Right, well, that just sums up episode 485 of your ICQ Amateur Ham Radio podcast. Really hope you enjoyed the show there, and we're going to catch you again in a fortnight's time. 73's all.